This is just a brief introduction and overview to emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is a field of study that came into being in the last 20 years or so, in part because of the strides that had been made in the field of brain science. So many writers write about emotional intelligence, but certainly one of the best known writers is Daniel Goleman. He has not only done research, but he's written quite a bit for the practitioner literature, for the popular press, and so he is widely associated with emotional intelligence. So here's a definition from Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence. He says emotional intelligence is the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. So let's just look at that definition piece by piece. So first of all, he says it's the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those feelings of others. So already in the definition, we can see that emotional intelligence isn't just about me and it isn't just about you. It's really about focusing on both of us. It's also about motivating ourselves so that we can manage emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. So again, you see it's me and you, both sides of the relationship that are part of emotional intelligence, but now you see it's also about managing those emotions. So it's not enough to recognize our feelings, for example. We need to manage those feelings so we can be as effective as possible. It's not enough to recognize the feelings and thoughts and concerns of others, but it's necessary for us to manage our emotions and help others manage their emotions so that we can be as effective as possible in our relationships. So emotional intelligence, in order to be effective, has both an us and others point of view as well as a recognition and a management point of view. So why is emotional intelligence important? Well, there's been lots of research that's been done over the last 20 or so years that has found that the difference between solid performers and outstanding performers is rarely technical expertise. You need technical expertise. You need to be good at your job in order to be a solid performer. But what takes you to that outstanding performer level is emotional intelligence. It's the ability to work and play well with others. Now, originally, when Dan Goleman began writing about emotional intelligence, he talked about 5 components of emotional intelligence. He talked about self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Since then, since his early writing, he's reconceptualized emotional intelligence into a 2x2 matrix model, and I wanted to make sure you were familiar with that model. So here's the 2x2 model, and you'll see that there's labels on the side and there's labels on the top. So this top row of the model, these 2 boxes, are about awareness, and the bottom 2 boxes are about management. And of course, that fits very well with the definition that we just read, that's both about awareness and about management. And you'll see the columns are labeled for self and for others. And again, that fits very well with the definition that we just read. So when you put those labels all together, what you find is the 4 quadrants are labeled self-awareness, which is, do I understand my own thoughts, concerns, biases, points of view, limitations, strengths, etc., etc.? Do I have self-awareness? And do I have self-management? So it's not enough to have self-awareness and say, I'm the kind of person who interrupts others all the time. You then need to go ahead and do something about that. You need to self-manage so that your behaviors are as effective as possible. And then when we look in the 3rd quadrant, we see social awareness. That's being aware of the thoughts and concerns, the needs, the priorities of others. It's taking the spotlight and putting it on other people, not just on ourselves. And then finally, the last quadrant is on relationship management. Now that I know myself, my needs, concerns, and thoughts, now that I know your needs, concerns, and thoughts, how can we effectively work together in order to get done whatever it is that we need to get done? So that is the current way that we're going to be discussing emotional intelligence, using this 4x4 model with the quadrants of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management.